The Iron Curtain is descending over Russia, I would say, falling at tremendous speed. Russians have started to be massively disconnected from the internet. In Russian regions, the internet is being shut down, and in the Ulyanovsk region, for example, the authorities announced that the ban on access to mobile internet will remain in effect until the end of the war against Ukraine. The decision is being explained as a matter of national security. In addition, now every Russian citizen who returns to Russia from abroad will immediately have their mobile internet and short message service access cut off. This will remain until the person goes through a special verification process to prove they are not a Western spy. Previously, messengers like Telegram and WhatsApp were blocked across Russia, and YouTube has faced disruptions for a long time. But do you think Russia stopped at just blocking mobile internet? Not at all. The State Duma of the Russian Federation has officially stated that the Federal Security Service can isolate Russia's internet at any time. This would happen if there are attempts from outside to influence the election process in Russia in 2026. In fact, this would mean that Russia would be completely cut off from the external internet, just like in North Korea. Moreover, last week Roskomnadzor gained the ability to completely isolate and disconnect Russia from the global internet, keeping only the local internet. And it's funny that the reason for cutting Russians off from the external internet could be, for example, the phrase Putin Kuilo, which might be considered election interference. Interestingly, when Russians are told the internet is shut down for national security, services like Yandex, VKontakte, and Gosuslugi still work. And Russians have already been told, listen, get ready for the fact that you'll have a whitelist of websites you can access. Everything else will be closed to you. My name is Alexei Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and be sure to write any detailed comment under this video. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as soon as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation or a paid sponsorship subscription using the links and details provided. In the description of this video, it says support the channel there. Alexei Pichi, choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support you provide. So, just yesterday, there were only rumors that mobile internet would soon be shut down in Russia, and now today. Here, the first region has already done it. The Ulyanovsk region will keep its mobile internet ban until the war against Ukraine ends, the regional government says. According to the Regional Minister of Digital Development, Oleg Yakfarov, the Ulyanovsk authorities cannot influence this decision as it is made by the Federal Center to ensure national security, and the restriction will only be lifted by a decision from Moscow. Although in reality, mobile internet hasn't been working properly in the Ulyanovsk region for about a week now. But today, they say it's being shut down completely, and Russians are being advised to use Wi-Fi hotspots in government institutions. You can visit locations to use the internet under Federal Security Service surveillance before heading home. The regional government justified the restrictions by referring to the Federal Center's decision last week to expand the security zone around strategic facilities. The regional authorities emphasized that these are permanent restrictions, not temporary measures, during the Ukrainian drone attack. But as it turned out, not only was mobile internet shut down, but in some areas the internet was completely disconnected. It does look absurd, and even as I say it myself, it's hard to believe. And at this point, an uneducated Russian would say that such an internet shutdown is simply necessary so that Ukrainian drones get lost and don't attack critical infrastructure. But the authorities of the Russian Federation have just hit rock bottom in this situation. Today, residents of the Ulyanovsk region were reminded about the so-called whitelist of internet services that will remain available even during an internet shutdown. It includes Gosuslugi, Yandex services, VKontakte, the Ozon and Wildberries marketplaces, the MIR payment system, and so on. In other words, the internet will still work. The Kremlin simply blocks websites it can't control, that's all. Because if the internet was shut down, then Yandex and VKontakte wouldn't work either. Here's the official explanation from Ulyanovsk Oblast authorities. Now, a quote. Right now, it's important to understand that these measures are not the whim of officials, nor a mistake by the executors. They simply forgot to turn the internet back on after the alert, but it's a necessity dictated by federal security requirements, which in turn are due to enemy attacks. The telecom operator, minister, and governor can't improve the situation right now. Only a Russian soldier can change it. This means that the restrictions will be lifted after the physical elimination of the source of the threat. But I want to emphasize, for some reason, Yandex will continue to work just fine. Let me remind you, in May of this year, the authorities of Russian regions began actively shutting down the internet under the pretext of ensuring security because of drone raids by the armed forces of Ukraine. Internet shutdowns are being recorded on a daily basis in more than 50 regions of Russia. In Ukraine, by the way, the internet is also sometimes shut down during air raid alerts, but in that case, communication doesn't work at all. This is done to actually disrupt the speed of drones and not interfere with air defense systems, unlike in Russia, where the internet is supposedly shut down, but Yandex and VKontakte somehow still work. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Last week, the Prime Minister of the Russian Federation, Mikhail Mishustin, signed a decree on the rules for centralized management of the public communication network. According to these rules, if there are threats to the stability, security, and integrity of the internet in Russia, Roskomnadzor will be able to disconnect the RUNET from the global internet and block any websites. The deputy head of the State Duma Committee on International Affairs, Alexei Chepa, said authorities may isolate the RUNE if there are outside attempts to influence Russia's 2026 election. He insists that Russia will have to be disconnected from the global internet sooner or later. He says it's better to do it sooner. According to him, the damned West is constantly trying to hack the remote electronic voting systems of the Central Election Commission and other federal authorities. They're constantly meddling, trying to hack and impose something there. So to avoid this, in Russia, they decided not to fight cyber attacks, but simply to disconnect Russia from the global internet. But you understand that the so-called election interference is just a pretext to disconnect Russians from the outside world. After all, it will be much easier to brainwash the unwashed this way. Well, after that, it's just insanity of the highest level. That's the one. Chepa stated that Russia could be cut off from the global internet because of attacks by Ukrainian drones. And also, if the authorities see that someone in Russia, quote, tries to commit terrorist or other prohibited actions, then Russia could be disconnected from the global internet. In short, Putin's regime has prepared all the conditions to finally turn Russia into North Korea, where only a local internet operates, which they control. North Koreans, for example, once learned that they had won the World Cup, and North Koreans believe it, simply because they don't have access to the external global internet. But it seems that paranoia in the Kremlin has reached all possible limits. Russian providers have started sending messages saying that they will restrict access to mobile internet and short message service messages according to the return of subscribers from abroad in accordance with security requirements. That is, when a Russian citizen returns from abroad, their internet and short message service are immediately cut off. Why does this happen? And that's because now a Russian citizen returning from abroad will have to go through special verification to prove that they haven't been recruited by foreign agents. Only after such a check, the subscriber will get their internet and text messages back, but that's not certain. So I'll put an ellipsis here. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all. Take care. Bye everyone.